Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Winnin' In podcast. I'm your host, Max P, and I'm joined today by the Dino Daddy himself, Spuki, aka Jacob, the Pantlaza man. What's going on, dude?
Thanks for going on, man? Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about what we're talking about today.
First, I want to do like a little, player profile and talk about you. So, not that many people maybe know who you are, even though you basically dominated the circuit. You made the Invitational last season on a deck that nobody would expect.
Yeah, of course.
On the Dino, the Pantlaza. And then after we do that little bit of a profile, we're going to talk about the fact that, as it turns out, the demise of CEDH was much exaggerated, and CEDH is actually going to be fine, guys. It's actually still here. There's still events everywhere, and we're going to talk about that.
Absolutely.
So first things first, talk about Pantlaza. Why the hell are you playing Pantlaza? What's the story there?
Sure. So the story of when I actually put together the list to begin with is I was actually at a CCS event the day after it got spoiled. I was there piloting Kinnan. I played Kinnan and I punted really hard. And I said, you know what? I'm going to build something crazy. And I ended up building Pantlaza on the way back home. I was off of no sleep at all, and instead of going to sleep on the ride home, I decided to build Pantlaza. And as soon as I realized that it comboed with more than just food chain, I was like, this deck actually seems pseudo-real, And the first major event I actually took it to was the first boil. Everything before that was, I did a couple bronze events, and that was really it before I had actually taken it to a big event.
I think people have like a common misconception that like you can only be successful if you're playing Blue Farm or playing one of the top 4 decks or playing something that everyone else is playing and has worked on. And I think the reality is you have this sort of class of player that I call a specialist, where you pick up a deck that you breathed life into yourself, you invented it, you came up with the ideas in it, and you just iterated and iterated and iterated till it was exactly what you wanted. And then that deck inside and out, the meta that you're playing it into. And because of that, you could take this deck and make it run and be just as powerful and successful as some of those top decks. And I think that's what you kind of demonstrate for everybody.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Pantlaza has been a blast to learn and pilot and build. It's been so much fun to actually meticulate the deck to exactly how I want it to be.
So just a couple more questions about you. So your real name's Jacob, right? And you're based in Alabama?
I am based in Alabama. I'm just north of Birmingham.
And how did you end up getting into CEDH?
So I got into CEDH. I don't know if you know who Drake Sasser is, right? But he came to a local tournament and just absolutely dominated. It was a 2-headed giant tournament. He just absolutely dominated. He was playing Cody. His partner was playing Lavinia. That was really my turning point where I was like, I really want to level up and figure out how to do that, because that was awesome, right? And there was a guy at the local who was already into CEDH. He was into Vacine, and he showed me the CEDH deck database. I ended up going off of that. I picked Kinnan. I played Kinnan for about 2 or 3 years, and I had a blast, man. That was the main thing, was him coming through that tournament, and some of my other buddies just playing it, locally. But that was that was the turning point for sure.
Nice. And how long ago was that? That was 3 years ago now?
3 years ago, maybe. Yeah. It was right when Cody had its first big boom.
I remember that. Talk about decks that have just disappeared. What happened to Cody, dude?
Honestly, man.
Where's Cody?
I think Dylan's like the only person representing it at all.
But you'd think, like, with the meta being as fast as it is right now, you'd think more people would be playing Cody.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think there's some deck building that could be built around it to make it a little bit less glass cannony than it is. But I think that's probably what deters most people, is how glass cannony the deck was. But it is a lot of fun to play. I played it in quite a few 2-headed giant tournaments now. Thank you, Drake Sasser, for the idea.
Nice. Yeah, 2-headed giant's interesting. Like, it would be cool to see that come to the format more. Because then you have a totally different build style, because you can do, you can have one deck be sort of control and the other deck just be, all gas, no brakes, just go after it.
Absolutely.
That'd be fun. Yeah. So, and then last year you managed to make the Invitational. You came in like, just under the wire, like 60th place, right?
60th
But you
place
did
going
all
into
of
it.
it on Pantlaza.
Yeah, there was a couple bronze events that I had brought some other decks, but most of that whole season was just Pantlaza.
Nice. And how to go to the Invitational? You were kind of in my boat, right?
Yeah, I was kind of in your boat. I ended up going 1-6-0. What's funny is, I don't know if you know who Alan is, but he was also in the Invitational on Blue Farm. I had actually tweeted at him, and because he said that he was going to go 7-0-0 as a joke, right? And I said, actually, you're going to go 6-1-0, and I'm going to go 1-6-0. And then, like,
you did.
I'm going to beat him. And the irony is, I did go 1-6-0.
I got slightly better than you. I went 1-5-1. So how you like that? Are you gonna play Pantlaza again this season, or are you gonna do something different?
So I was looking at branching into some other decks. I had put together some of my own lists. I had put together Blue Farm, Roxai, Kenrith, Sisei, Najila, and Rog Thras, all as some deck ideas that I was looking at playing. And I played all of them. I play tested all of them, and none of them. And maybe I just haven't given them enough time, but none of them has been as fun as just slamming a dinosaur and passing. You know what I mean? So I think I'm gonna stick with my guts and just play Pantlaza from here on out, at least for the foreseeable future.
Dino addict. Yeah. Why do you like that deck so much?
I don't know. It's just like, what's the best way to explain it? It's interactive in a way that you wouldn't think it's interactive. It interacts at like key points. One of my favorite things I've ever done on Pantlaza was stop 3 win attempts at one time with one spell, and that was an Aven Interrupter. So there was a Necropotence on the stack, but somebody else had Fierce Guardianship, and in response to the Fierce Guardianship, they had the player who cast the Necropotence cast a Veil. This is when the Magda player responded with one of the Convoke or Improvise burn spells that makes 5 treasures because it deals enough damage. It would have generated him enough treasures to win on top of that. So by doing that, I cast Aven Interrupter. I triggered a Rhystic. I let the Rhystic draw. There was a Bowmaster in play that pinged off the creature that the Magda was trying to kill. The Aven Interrupter countered the Veil. So the Veil was gone, and then the Necropotence was then countered by the Fierce Guardianship, and the next player went for a Underworld Breach line, and because of Aven Interrupter's line of text, for instance, the spell costs 2 more. Whoops. At that point, all in, Aven Interrupter, 3-for-1, baby. The highlight of my career.
Yeah. So for anyone interested in taking a look at this list, I'll put it in the description below, so you can check out his crazy dino. It's pretty hot. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty damn cool.
So much fun to play.
So I guess with that, let's talk about the elephant in the room, if you will. So there was a lot of drama that happened last week in CEDH. I have no interest in rehashing all of that. If you really want to see how I feel about it, I did a bit of a Twitter storm yesterday. So you go to my tweet, you go to my Twitter, you go to my X, whatever you want to call it. Take a look. I have a long set of threads there where I talk about everything that happened and my feelings about it. I don't want to go into that now. What I do want to talk about the fact is that a lot of people have really been dooming and glooming on CEDH, including myself, over the last few days, because there was this real palpable feeling that we'd lost CEDH, that it was over, that the party was done, that things were collapsing on itself, and that we're gonna have to go play standard or vintage or something else, right? I'm here to tell you that that's not actually the case. That once the smoke cleared a little bit and had a chance to kind of look over things and think about things with my head clear of all the stuff that I had to put out there, it's actually CEDH isn't in a bad spot at all. Actually, there's actually a ton of events coming up. Top Deck is not actually dead. There's some change in who's running it and how things are going, but the software is still there. There's still events that are coming that are running on the software, and CEDH is actually probably going to end up better as a result of the last couple of weeks. We're moving on from some of the things that were holding us back, and I'll start with this. The first thing is the rules committee, this whole thing started because there was a tweet that came out from Jim from the rules committee about what the rules committee were willing or not willing to do when it came to regulating CDH and the ban list. And since then, there's been a bunch of conversations that have happened with Jim, and Jim has made it very clear that he's very open to feedback from CDH, and that if we ever were to run into a situation where we were in crisis and something needed to be taken care of, the rules committee could and absolutely would, in some situations, step in and deal with it. So our perception that the RC was telling us to punt, good luck, wasn't actually true. So instead, we now have an open line to the RC in a way we didn't have before. They're much more receptive than they were before. That in and of itself is a silver lining, right?
Absolutely.
And then, going from there, we've got huge tournaments coming up. The biggest one, the big showcase one, is still a Top Deck event, which you're going to, right?
Yeah, I am going to the Boil too.
So as of right now, there are 320 people attending the Boil. So CDH is not dead. We're about to have the biggest event we've ever had with 320 people. And I've heard murmurs that number may even go up. So by the time the Boil actually happens, it could be substantially higher than 320 people. So that doesn't sound like a format that's dying to me.
Absolutely not. Not a format that is consistently upping itself on what's coming to like a monthly basis, right? Every few months, it is just tournaments are going bigger and bigger, and I foresee that continuing as long as these venues have the room for it.
Yeah, agreed. And I think if you look at the slate of what's coming up, so I already mentioned the Boil. There's the New Jersey Summer CDH Tournament, which is actually happening in 3 days in New Jersey. Right. It's listed as a 64 player cap, but when I look right now, there are 92 players registered. Okay. So that's this weekend. Also this weekend, I saw another event, Commander Palooza, which currently has 153 people registered in Michigan. So that's coming up this weekend as well. So if you look at those two events together, that's 250 people playing CDH this weekend across the country. Right? We've got the Festival of Nights coming up in October, which is going to be 128 players. I will be playing in that event. That's another big tournament. We've got the Boil, as we said. And then the week after the Boil, I'm going to Lisbon in Portugal to play in the European Championship, where there's going to be, I think, 256 players as well.
That'll be a fun time, I'm sure.
But it's going to be amazing. Yeah. I don't even care about the tournament. I just want to see all those people and play with them.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be in LobbyCon. That's what I care about. But it's going to be a blast. Right? And then after that in January, skipping and this is not even talking about, there's dozens of smaller events, bronze events, silver events, gold events. All of those things are still out there. You still have all across the country events every single weekend. But then we have the Royal Rumble. It's an 8K in January, and that's going to be 256 people up in Massachusetts. I'm going to that one as well.
I believe I'm going to that one. I haven't confirmed anything yet, but I think I am.
Excellent. And not only that, but Top Deck has said that event has now been upgraded to Diamond. So that is a Diamond event. So even though Top Deck is now running less events, there's other TOs that are picking up the slack already. That's already happening, which is good for all of us, right?
Yes, it is.
So there's that. And then there's still Fishbowl coming in March. And that's as of right now, and here we are, we're talking 6 months out, and there's all of this already on the calendar. So, I don't know what else you could ask for.
It is quite a number, quite a lineup of these really big events filled with really good players, and the community is just ever growing. It's great. I love this community so much.
The other thing that's happening is, up until this point, we were kind of in a situation where we had a single point of failure in the community, and that is we were completely and 100% reliant on Top Deck for everything. Mm-hmm. And to their credit, they did a great job. All of the growth that's happened is because of what they did. But we were 100% dependent on them. So when what happened last week happened, everyone panicked because, okay, now what? We're relying on their software, we're relying on their big events, we're relying on their circuit. Now that's going to change. Now there's going to be other software solutions that will emerge in parallel to Command Tower. So we're going to have Command Tower, there's going to be Spice Rack, there's a few other software developers that are working on stuff right now. So we're going to have options and we're going to have competition, which is great, right? Because now the software features aren't going to be just completely dependent on the good graces of the people developing it, but their desire to compete with each other and put out good product.
And competition in a line like that is always a great thing because it will end up better for the players ultimately.
Yeah, 100%. And there's also TOs rising. You're planning to do some TOing yourself, right?
So we have a lineup of a couple different events that I'm not going to quite disclose yet because we want to ensure that they are going to happen and blah, blah, blah. But we are planning on trying to TO some events locally, see if we like the scene. And if we do like TOing, then we might have some plans for some bigger things in the future.
And you're not the only one doing this.
No.
I've talked to a lot of people right now who are all looking at TOing. I know there's some big holes that have opened in terms of Cowtown, Punt City. Those big events are now open. Like those weekends are open, and people are going to look to pick that right up and run with it because the demand is there. So those events are going to happen. CEDH is going to grow. We're going to turn the corner now, and we're going to grow in ways we couldn't have before. I think events will get even bigger than they were. I think we're going to see 300-person events be a normal thing each quarter somewhere in the country. I think we're going to see multiple software platforms become available to everybody. And I think we're going to see more and more TOs rise up because the demand is there. And where there's demand, there's money to be made. And where there's money to be made, there's people who are going to, get their shit together enough to go and collect that money, frankly.
That's right. Absolutely. I think CEDH is here to stay, and I think it's here to grow for sure.
So guess what? CEDH is okay, and it's going to be okay.
Absolutely. That's been one of my main focal points going into all this. That had happened previously in this past week, week or two. Everything I've told everybody, I'm like, look, the format's been here for a long time. The tournament scene definitely picked up pretty heavily, but I don't see the format going anywhere. I see it only continuing to thrive and continuing to grow, even if they were to completely disappear. I think the format would continue to grow ultimately. I think the demand is there.
Yeah, and we've had hiccups before. I mean, remember when I first started playing CEDH, there was 2 tournament providers basically.
Yeah. There
was Eminence, which became Top Deck, and there was Monarch. And my first event was a Monarch event. It was Oktoberfest. And I had a great time, and it was a lot of fun. But Monarch kind of fell apart after that because the guy who was running Monarch, Joking 101, Nick Hammond, sold it to a guy who turned out to be less than honest and basically ran Monarch into the ground. So at that point, we were looking at 2 tournament organizers, both of them putting together circuits and trying to grab as much real estate on the calendar as they could, to one of them completely collapsing and it being a 1 TO show. And everyone panicked at that point because we thought, okay, if it's just one, how are they going to make all this stuff happen? How is the format going to continue to grow? There was a split in loyalties between people who are loyal to Monarch and people who are loyal to Eminence. We thought the format was going to collapse at that point, and it didn't. And it's not going to collapse this time either. And not only that, but there's been a divide between the tournament environment and the non-tournament environment. So you've got the Redditors, everyone, it's almost like the 2 gangs, right? You got the tournament grinders and you got the Redditors, and we don't get along. We're not friends. And that's like a long-standing feud that actually, when you look at it, makes absolutely no fucking sense at all.
Yeah.
Like, we all love CEDH. We all want to play.
Absolutely.
We should all be part of the same community. There should not be this giant divide.
Yeah,
and in a lot of ways, Top Deck was sitting in the fault line.
Yep.
Right. And with this, falling out that happened in the last week, the end state of that is I think we can finally bridge that chasm between the 2 communities and become one community where you have people able to play CEDH as much as they want, with a tournament option to really test your skills if you want to. Right.
Absolutely.
So that, it's a great thing in the end. And yeah, there'll be some bumps along the way. some people still don't like each other very much. My response to that is get the fuck over it. Grow up. Time to move on. Time to let that stuff go and get back to just playing the stupid game that we love.
That's right. We're all here to put cards on the table, right?
Exactly. Let's get back to resolving Underworld Breach instead of, yelling at each other.
Dark side for me. That's all I need.
So I know this is a short episode, but I think we covered everything.
I think so.
If you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed our conversation, please like and subscribe. Do that kind of stuff because it helps us a lot. Check out our Discord. I'll put the link to that below. Spuki here has his own YouTube channel where he does competitive gameplay all the time. I've seen some pretty stout guests on there. So you got some good games going on. So I'll put a link to his channel below too. Go check that out. And with that, thanks for joining us.